Let's talk about skunks. I don't know if I get the most calls from people having skunk problems, but certainly they are some of the most desperate people. With skunks, we want to certainly look at things like habitat modification and cultural, because quite often we're looking at they eat more insects than anything, but if they can find a good place to have shelter and find rodents around the house or places that we set up for them, they're going to take advantage of it. In addition to removing those things, we can exclude them. A lot of problems with mobile homes, and mobile homes, because of their nature, have openings that provide access underneath the mobile home. Get them out of the weather. They sometimes find mice under there, but getting around those mobile homes or around foundations with some of that wire fabric, the rabbit wire hardware cloth, is really worthwhile. Just like we did with the ground squirrel, the woodchuck, it's important to fold that out because the skunks are good diggers. Some places you're better off using a metal sheeting if you needed to close the whole area up, but you want to get it a foot into the ground. Now, what happens if you plug up that hole and there are babies inside? You don't want to close the skunk into the bottom underneath there, nor do you want to enclose their offspring. So one thing you can do is to plug up all the holes around the house and then leave one hole open. And on that hole, just take cooking flour and put it on the ground. And then you'll see the tracks when the skunk comes out. And then you can plug it up, maybe an hour after dark. They're going to come out just as it's starting to get dark, is when they'll come out and start doing their wandering. And so you'll see those tracks if they come out. If they come out, then you can plug it up. Plug it up temporary, because if you see that it comes back and it's digging and it's really persistent about getting back in there, they may have young skunks in there. And the only thing worse than having a skunk under your house is having a dead skunk under your house. So you want to get those babies out. And the babies come in a couple different forms. The babies that are still nursing, if they die, they just kind of dry up and there's no problem. However, if they're the ones that are almost ready to take off with mama, they are the ones that won't dry up. They will just start stinking, and then you'll have a real mess under there. So if the skunk's persistent, there's probably young skunks under there, and then you're going to have to get underneath there or somehow trap them. If they're the ones that are just about ready to leave with mama, they can be trapped. You can put the live trap right under the house, and they'll go into the live trap, and you can catch them there. But you want to leave that hole open until you're sure you've gotten everything. Repellents are certainly something everybody always asks about, and they want to put mothballs in there. They want to use those ultrasonic devices. Well, the mothballs can work, but you have to put so many mothballs in there that the odor will be coming up through the house. And not only that, you have to put so many mothballs in there, and you have to keep replacing them, that can be an endless task. So although skunks don't like mothballs, it's not really a practical way of keeping them out of an area. I keep saying the only permanent way to get rid of skunks is to skunk-proof the building. There's no repellents that are labeled for skunks at all. Frightening devices. Well, I think for obvious reasons we don't like to use frightening devices against skunks, because if they spray, you've got a real mess. So then we start looking at removal. But don't forget, we only use removal when we're looking at having already skunk-proofed the place, because we don't want to have other skunks coming and taking their place after you remove some of them. Toxicants, there's no toxicants labeled for skunk control, almost the same as the frightening. I don't know if you want to use a toxicant anyways. Gas cartridges are labeled for them, but you certainly don't want to use gas cartridges in an area around the home or where you can plug them up. And I guess if you had a perpetual problem with skunks and you did have some dens you knew they were in, that must be why they're labeled. But again, obvious limitations on that. Skunk removal. Let's talk about trapping skunks. Live trapping skunks is the most logical way to get rid of them, and it is usually one of the easiest animals to trap. Probably a house cat is the only thing easier to trap than a skunk. If you're going to trap a skunk, you want to use a fish-based cat food. and you want to put it, just as I said before, you want to use a small live trap, you want to use that fish-based cat food, and you want to lure them in. A little bit of bait at the door, a little bit part ways in, a little on the treadle, and then the mother load in the back there so that they're spending time eating on that and they'll make the trap close. Always have to go through thoughts about covering the trap. Certainly covering the trap is something that would sound logical to do. The problem with covering the trap in some situations is that a dog or a human that sees that trap and puts their head down there to look in it won't know that it's a skunk until they're within range. And so in some situations you really don't want to cover the trap, but you can consider doing it. If you do, you want to cover it with a canvas or something like that. Covering the trap after the catch, of course, is very important if you're going to move the skunk, and it's much easier said than it would sound. All you need to do is to have a piece of carpet or a tarp or something like that, heavy cloth, and approach the skunk trap very slowly. Skunks do 3 things before they spray. The first thing they do is just pay attention to you. They'll have their nose going up and down, kind of catching the wind like they're curious about what it is that they're seeing or smelling. The next thing they do when they're showing some concern is they'll start stomping their front feet. They tap their front feet on the ground. The third thing they do is turn their butt towards you, and we know what the fourth thing is. So you just got to look at all those steps. I have never covered a skunk trap where the skunk went beyond just showing the curiosity and moving his nose up and down. Because if he goes any further than that, I back off until he calms down. And so if you take that tarp or carpet and put it over the trap, resist the urge to throw it when you're at the last 2 feet. Put it down very slowly, and then remember to put that put that cover underneath the trap. Skunks will only spray at something. They won't just be in a dark hole and say, I'm afraid, and start spraying. So that means if you put that cover all the way underneath the trap and keep it tightly wound around the trap so the skunk can't see anything, it doesn't have a target and it won't spray. And so that's one of the things that you can do. To release it or to not release it, we had some discussion earlier about that. Releasing a skunk, you have to go at least 10 miles away so it won't come back. If you do release it in good habitat, chances are there's already some skunks there, and they're going to do what they can do to try to drive it into a different area. If you release it into poor habitat, it's not likely that it's going to live. It's going to leave that area. Their initial tendency is to go back to the area they came from, which means they're going to encounter accidents and exposure and maybe starvation. And then the other thing is we always have to be concerned about whether we're posing another problem for somebody else. If this is a skunk that's been a problem for you, it'll probably be a problem for someone else. So consider all those things before you decide to release any animal, especially a skunk. One of the easiest ways to euthanize a skunk so that it doesn't spray is to put it into a tank of water or into a stream. When they drown, the odor won't be apparent. They can be shot. Of course, they are going to spray if you do that. A couple old wives' tales, so to speak, that people wonder about. No, you can't use a real small trap that'll hold his tail down and he can't spray. He can still spray. You can't hold him up by the tail and he won't spray. He can still spray. You can shoot him in the head and they won't spray. No, they will spray. There's just really no 100% sure way of making sure that the skunk won't spray when it dies, and a lot of that is just because of the natural reaction of muscles when they die, and it'll spray. So it's really not a good way to keep it from spraying when you kill it, other than drowning it. What happens when a skunk does spray? We know that the old solution of tomato juice has been used for years, and it does work. You just dump the tomato juice on the animal, and it'll keep the acids in it will break the skunk spray down quite a bit, and it will work. But there's a better formula that actually neutralizes the odor. It sounds a little complicated, but it can be made from things that are readily available. get a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, and a quart of that, and a quarter cup of baking soda, and a teaspoon of liquid soap, and mix that all together, and it makes a real good solution that you can put on your dog, or if it sprays a building, you can wash the building down with it, or you can even put it on yourself, and it'll quickly get rid of that spray. If you put it on that black lab bowl, it can turn into a gold lab if you put too much of it on there. No, it's more likely to turn into a chocolate lab, but it will bleach if you use a whole lot of it, so just be aware of that. But it does work real good way to get rid of that odor. Okay, so that's the PowerPoint on the slides. Let's go. Yeah, we've got some other things to say. Why is that showing on there?
Because my connection is really slow. At lunch, I'm going to get him to.
Oh, okay. Because I wonder if everybody else is seeing.
As long as their connection is fine, I think it's
okay.
Good.
All right, sounds good. Sorry about that. Okay, can you put the camera on?
Yeah.
You're on there now? Okay.
Second.
And again, it's running real slow, isn't it? Doesn't look like I'm here yet. Okay, just a couple things on the skunks. We already looked at the live trap. But if you're trapping skunks, as I said before, I like to take a coffee cup or some paper cup, fill it up with the fish-based cat food, and that's what goes in the back of the trap, that kind of the mother load for the skunk to get to. And then get this stuff out of the way, and then put a little bit of the bait right at the doorway, right when you first go in, partways in on the treble, and then a whole bunch of cat food in the back here. And like I said, skunks are really easy to trap. And this is about the size that's ideal. I've caught them in much bigger traps. I've caught them in much smaller traps. Okay. This is the flour I was referring to, regular cooking flour. Anytime you're wanting to find out if something is in a hole or under a house or is in or out, a little bit of cooking flour is a quick and easy way to detect the tracks to find out if they're there or not. When you're making when you're trying to deal with skunk spray, the old tomato juice certainly is something you can use, but this mixture of hydrogen peroxide and the baking soda and the dish soap also works real well. I think that's it. Okay.